Hey everybody, this is Sue Craig, your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Cleveland, Ohio. And today I have a different kind of card for you. It's a card that I've used. Half of it is cardstock, the other half is designer series paper. And then in the center I have added a really pretty set of squares and triangles, and I'll show you how all that's done. I've also added a sentiment, and I'll show you how I did this using a punch from Stampin' Up! On the inside, I decorated it with some more designer paper, and I'll show you how I did that as well. Let me show you what we're going to be using today. All the measurements will be listed in the description below, so you don't have to worry about writing any of it down. You can just listen as we go along here. The cardstock that we're going to start with is Mossy Meadow. It's a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece. I have not scored it. I want to show you another way that you can fold your paper if you don't have something that scores. I needed a piece of 4 inch by 5.25 inch white. That'll be for the inside. You're going to need whatever color cardstock you've decided on. This is one of the new ones called Golden Glow. These are 1 inch squares. You need 2 of them. You need 2 pieces of designer paper that are also 1 inch squares. This was just a scrap of designer paper that I had left over. And it was 2.5 by 3.25, and I'm going to use that on the inside. But again, you can use whatever you have. For the front of the card, I took 2 pieces. They're exactly the same. They're 2 inches wide by 5.25 inch long. So this is Golden Glow again. And this is our gorgeous designer paper. And I'll show you more pieces and larger pieces of that. And that's also 2 by 5.25. And then I just grabbed a piece of Golden Glow for my sentiment. And I'll show you why I just grabbed a piece. The stamp set that we're going to be using is Begonia Belle, and this was the product of the month for July. If it hasn't sold out, it will still be available this month. We're going to be using this sentiment, Sending Happiness Your Way. And I wanted to show you what I do with mine. I take a Sharpie marker, permanent marker, and I just draw around all of the stamps on the thick side of the plastic that we get. And then when one is missing, which is the sentiment here, then I know I have one missing and where it belongs. I also store the masks that I use to cover up things on my cards with the stamp sets, so that next time I want to do some more masking, I can do that. The embossing folder I'm going to use is called Fern and Flora 3D. Unfortunately, this is out of stock until the end of September. You can sign up for an email. So when it becomes available again, they will send you an email so that you know when it comes in. You don't have to check the website all the time. All right, and Moonlit Flora is what we're going to be using. And this is how I store my paper. I cut it to be 4 inches by 6 inches so that it's a real good size for doing my cards. Some of them I leave 6 by 6. Some of them, but most of them I'll cut them down to this size so that I have them available for my cards. And then I have scraps that I keep in here. But I also will write down, it was a 12 by 12 pack, because some of these that we have are 6 by 6 packs. And then I list all of the colors so that when I'm working with this, I know what colors coordinate with it. So if I'm using markers or the cardstock, then I know what to pull out, what'll match with it. So I don't have to do a whole lot of heavy duty thinking there. All right, this is one of the gorgeous pages in this paper. I think they've done just an amazing job with this. And of course, the back, which goes beautifully with the front. That secret C on the back. This one, of course, I've used. Isn't that beautiful? There's the back of that. Look at this one. With the moth. All the moths and the ferns. Look at that. Look at this one. Oh my goodness. Isn't that beautiful? So I fell in love with this. You can see why this is out of stock, because it has been a very fun favorite for everybody. We're also going to need whatever you want to use to decorate. Now I'm using the rest, I'm using some of my 26, 28 in color dots, and I have some of the adhesive back down balloons. You can use whatever you have. All right, I said I was going to show you how to fold your cardstock. If you have any kind of cutter, typically it has an end so that you can bump your paper up against it, just like we do. And typically I would do this against, you know, like facing me, but I'm going to do it this way so the camera catches it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold this over till both edges meet the end down here and push down. Okay, and then what you can do is you can take your bone folder and you can push down on it. And you have a nice fold. And most likely it's going to meet beautifully here. Sometimes I find when I score it, sometimes I find that it doesn't match up exactly. Not a big deal. But that's just another way, in case you don't have this type of cutter that has a scoring blade on it. This I could have just put in here and put at 4 1/4, and then ran my scoring blade over it, and it would have had a score line in it. Okay, so now you have another way that you can do that. Now I have my scoring blade and my cutting blade out because I want to show you how to cut these pieces. If you have scissors, you can easily use the scissors. But if you are a person who likes to be a little more exact with your measurements, this is one way you can do it. You can lay your squares in so that the points are touching. They're actually above the track here. And what I do is I set my piece on top. But what I do first is I scoot this down. This is my cutting blade, and I'm going to put it, you can see it's not at the front, not at the back here. I'm just going to set it in the middle. This is going to enable me to cut this without hitting the points and bending them. Okay, that's how I cut my square, so that I have 2 triangles. And I'm going to need 1 square and 2 triangles for this design in the center. I purposely punched out a piece that was really pretty of the designer paper, and I want you to look at the sample. That's this piece right here. This is a whole square. So I wanted to have one piece that would kind of showcase that pretty flower. The other ones, it doesn't really matter. You could if you wanted to, but I didn't have that on my paper. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up the points in the track, scoot my cutting blade down, And I'm going to hold this down so that this little piece doesn't move. Cut up, cut down. And now I have triangles. Again, you could cut with your scissors, but this is a way to make sure that you have something that's more exact. If you're doing paper quilting, that is something that really comes in handy when you're trying to match things up. You'll see on mine here, it didn't exactly match up here. So we learn as we go along, you know. All right. What you'll also notice on this is that half of my card, the cardstock is embossed. So I think we're done with this. We're going to take our cardstock and put it in the Fern and Flora embossing folder. So I have my 2-inch piece. If you have a certain fern that you really like on this one, you could line your paper up with the pattern that you would like to see. So I think I'm going to put it right over here. And then I'm going to need to do the small pieces that I'm going to be using. And it's really not going to matter. But I'm just going to set these in here. And we'll run it through the machine. So I'll be right back. Because this is the 3D embossing folder, we need plate 1 and plate 4, the gray plate. And here we are. So we have that's embossed. These cuties are embossed as well. Quite often I like to use my Take Your Pick tool to move things around. And we're done with the embossing folder. All right, so now what we're going to do is put it together. How about before we do that, let's do our sentiment. Now the sentiment is I got a, like I told you, a piece that's a scrap. I did not measure this. And I have my Labeled with Love punch. You can use any punch at all, any at all. And so what we're going to do is take, well, I have Old Olive. Well, let's see, what do we like? What looks better? Old Olive or Mossy Meadow. I think originally I had Old Olive paper out and it didn't look right. So, all right, let's see what. Yeah, I think I like that a whole lot better than the Old Olive. So let's use Mossy Meadow. We'll make that correction when we type it up. So we'll put Old Olive away. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in, and you'll notice that my sentiment is very, very small compared to the punch. But I liked the decorative part of the ends of the punch. And so here's what I did. I lined it up here like this and punched. And then I put it back in. Put it back in. And you can see it's the right, I've lined it up here so that it's straight. And you can make this as short or as tall as you want there. And you punch. So now what I have is something that's substantially smaller than the original, but it makes a pretty punched out piece for my card. So look at your punches that way. See what you can do when you have smaller sentiments like this. That way you're not having punches sit in the drawer that you're not using. All right, I'm going to take my Mossy Meadow and I'm going to lay it flat because I typically will do that. And I'm going to put my papers on. And it does not matter what side you put this on. In fact, maybe what we'll do is I'll switch them around and see if it makes a difference in the way it looks. What I did was I matched them up like this to make sure that I had a border that was about the same all the way around. Then I took one of the pieces and put adhesive on it. And then did the other one. But that way, if you're doing liquid glue, then you have a pretty good idea that you're not going to have to move it because you've already eyed it up. Some people will also not use tape on things that are embossed. I have not had a problem with pieces like this that will not stick because it's embossed. Okay, so far so good. All right. This is the next part where we're going to take our pieces and we're going to put them on the card. And the idea is to put obviously the designer paper on one side and the cardstock on the other. And what we're going to do is kind of the same thing. We're going to line this up so that we have our long side against this, and then this piece is going to go in the middle. And what I'm trying to do is to get this set up so that it's kind of centered. All right. You could, if you wanted, you could add dimensionals. I did not, but that might be a nice idea to see what it does. So let's see. It may take just a little bit longer to do this, but I think I want to see what it looks like. So I'm going to put dimensionals on the back here and see what it looks like popped up. When I was doing this, I was trying to figure out where it's better to start. Do you start in the middle? Do you start at the top? And I found it really depended on just building the whole thing like this so I could see where the middle was. Okay. And then if I want to come down a little, I can do that. So now that I have it like that, I can take this piece and put it on. And because it's dimensionals, if you make a mistake, these should lift off if you don't push down on them. So we'll start with this one about here. And what I want to do is to line this up so it's even with the cardstock. And then we'll put this next to it. We'll butt it right up against it. And the last one. This would be a good way to use my tweezers to fit that right in there. All right. Now we'll do the same thing. We'll put some dimensionals on these, because if we don't, it's going to look a little strange. This is one of the things I really enjoy doing, is to find a quilt pattern and make cards that way. There is a Facebook group, I think she's called the Chirpy Quilter. She makes beautiful cards. She works really hard at getting patterns and simplifying them for people like me who don't have quilting experience, but card making experience. And she makes some beautiful, beautiful designs. All right, so that looks like a square. That one matches. That's a little bit off here, but I think it'll be okay. Many of the cards that I make will end up going to one of our local hospitals. I have a card ministry, and I donate cards to the hospital, and they will put them on dinner trays for patients. And it could be a patient who is recovering from surgery or whatever, or it could be a person who might be very, very sick and may not be getting well, but would appreciate having someone say they're praying for him or thinking about him. So that's how we make this. These are the two triangles at the top down here, and then we have our square in the middle. And since we popped everything else up, how about if we just add some dimensionals to our sentiment? And I put the sentiment on the designer paper, but if I do that, it's going to cover this up. So I think what I'm going to do on this card is just put it on this side. The front is complete except to be decorated. So let's take a look at the inside. Many times for the inside, I will wait until I decide what I want for it. This is going to go to the hospital, so what I'll have to do is find, you know, what is it they need? Do they need get wells? Do they need just thinking of you or praying for you? I'll find out what they need, and then I'll add that in the center. So I'm going to put my white piece here. I was taking a look at my fingernails. My 4-year-old granddaughter and I were doing nails the other day, and the new nail polish we got has stickers on them, so she wanted Grandma to put stickers on her nails. So just a fun thing to do. She enjoys that kind of thing. Only for a little while, and then she peels it off. So thankfully that's what this is, peel off nail polish. All right, so all I'm doing now is just matching up the side here to put our designer paper in. And I do have my mat here. A lot of times I talk and forget that I have it. And that's nice, especially for this kind of card, or even for a sympathy card. It really dresses up the inside of your card, and you don't have to write a lot, especially for cards where it's hard to think of what you want to say. All right, so if you were going to put something on here like I did, I just put the little flower here, and then you could put your dots if you want. I had some that were kind of left over, so I was just playing around with where I could put them. Sometimes I put them inside the flowers. or I usually will put something near the sentiments so that brings your eye to the sentiment. Well, there you go. That's our card for today. I don't have a name for it, but I hope you like it. I hope you give it a try. And thanks for watching.